we'll get straight into the first crack, because my first crack is going straight to Bomberland. And is it rinse and repeat again? Is it Groundhog Day in regard to Essendon's ability to want to defend? Because this has been the same old story now for over a decade, and 2 games into a new season, nothing has changed. And the problem is, this is Brad Scott's 3rd pre-season, and all we have heard coming out of Essendon is that the standards and the system were going to be different. This was going to be sustainable. It was something that they could work towards. But from what we are seeing at the moment, it hasn't. It has not improved at all, and there have got to be massive question marks. And I just wonder what the hierarchy at the Essendon Football Club is seeing that the rest of us can't, because there is no confidence from anyone that's watching Essendon at the moment that anything is going to be different to what has always been the case. Yet they've extended Brad, and they believe he's the right man for the job, but I'm not sure we see it. So before we get any further and have a look at some numbers, I just want to take a listen to Brad Scott in his press conference post-game.
We'd lose a critical mark inside 50, and they'd find an uncontested mark really quickly and then bounce us from that. So that makes it really hard to build any pressure, to play your style.
So do they really value defence? So I hear Brad Scott there talk about, well, it came because they took intercept marks. Well, Adelaide only took 12 intercept marks in the back half. There were 5 other teams that conceded as many, if not more, than Essendon on the weekend. None of them conceded 10 goals from the back half like Essendon did. And this is the theme. So 2022, the year before Brad Scott came, you could see the defensive numbers, and it had been over a long period of time before that. He comes in 2023, 2024, and now we're 2 games into 2025.
It's got worse.
And those numbers, well, it's still only very early. But we need to see some proof. We need to stop hearing the talk and actually see some action, because I don't think they really value defence as a team. And we'll show some vision in the second segment when we actually break down what went wrong. But the question is Brad Scott the right man to change this? Is he the man that can actually improve these numbers for Essendon to win big finals? Because history has said, Jay, the last 19 premiers have been top 6 in points against. You have to still be a team that values defence to win finals. This is Brad Scott's 13th season as an AFL coach. You know how many times his teams have been top 6 points against?
Made a prelim.
Not once. He's had some good years, and he's had all varying teams. And I know he's had some teams with not as strong lists and others that have been more experienced. But not once in 13th season, this is his 13th season now, has a team finished top 6 for points against. So what is going to change with either his methods or Essendon, who have been this way for a decade, that he's going to make it something sustainable that can lead to finals in the future? I understand where their list is at. I know that they had 8 players out of their side missing on the weekend. You can find excuses if you want to. But they still had enough senior players that have been in the system 4 or 5 years plus that just don't value it enough. And it is a concern that is going to continue until something drastic happens. I don't know what it's going to take.
Confidence. I'm hearing you got no confidence.
I don't think anyone does. I don't think anyone that's watching Essendon sits back and goes, I can see it. I can see this defensive profile that has been ordinary for a decade is changing. So it's a massive watch. I'm not sure where it's going to come from. There are a lot of question marks. Like, for example, if you really value defence, are you really starting the season with Dylan Shield and Jackson Pryor as your defenders? Are you playing Jade Gresham as a pressure forward who's never done it his whole career? There's just a lot of question marks around what they are valuing, and then maybe they are reaping what they sow. I just want to put it on watch. It's a concern and something that is going to have to be improved over the year, or who knows.
So how long would you give it to roll on like this?
Well, they've got to this season. I want to see some. I said at the start of the year, I spoke about this is Brad Scott's 3rd pre-season. We want to see some fingerprints on his system. Now, if this is still it after 3 years, what's going to make a difference in 4, 5, 6 years? They've signed for another few. So there's massive concerns, and I think everyone is seeing it.
At Essendon, we're all asking, how does Essendon want to defend? What are they trying to do back there? You've had a good look, Joey.
Yeah, and I found it interesting in the press conference. He spoke about the forward end and how they couldn't stop Adelaide taking intercept marks and bouncing off that. But I had a look at the numbers. As I said before, Adelaide only took 12 marks in their back half. AFL average is 11. So I don't know if that was the real reason, but what was the problem is that they couldn't stop it when it did bounce out, which happens to every team. And this isn't singling individuals. This is about a whole football program and their ability to how they want to defend as a system. Because this, I've got to show 10 clips. We just picked out a couple of how much space and how easy it was for Adelaide to just pick Essendon apart defensively. And it did leave Mackay and Zack Merritt, who must be fair, they were ordinary, and they'll understand that, but they were left out to dry by some of their teammates up the field. To allow 115 uncontested marks, 20 marks inside 50, but this is what it looked like time after time. It's just a simple intercept mark and space everywhere. Like Tex Walker here has got all the time in the world. Wow. There are players free everywhere. He could have picked 4 or 5 options. And this is what it looked like all afternoon. So you just got to say, what are you valuing Essendon? What are you standing for? And this one was, for me, the most telling. So Sam Durham, everyone says, is the heart and soul of the Essendon Footy Club. He's the spirit. He is the Essendon edge. He's the one that gives his all. Well, this is after a centre bounce early in the quarter. Look, where's his intent to defend?
The leg.
So let's not use some of the other names and pick on some of the low-hanging fruit. This was one of their spiritual leaders in the team also doing it. And I just wanted to show it as well because it was the ranking goal again. But that was the look we got. So they have got some serious work to do. The week before, they were saved a bit by how much contested ball they won, which is a strength. But as I showed, when it went inside defensive 50, they were still the third worst team at getting scored against when it went in. This week, it was a full ground. So there's problems everywhere at the moment with the way they want to defend as a team.
There were some long leashes there, no doubt about that. You highlighted Dylan Shield last night. He had some fumbly moments, Kingy.
Yeah, and more than that, I mean, the vision will speak for itself and will play his performance. He doesn't want to defend. He's not good enough on counter-attack to warrant the selection in this position. They talk about standards. They move on Jake Stringer because he can't live the Essendon values. Well, this guy cannot play for Essendon anymore. It is as simple as that.
Well, this is
They
can't play him.
He didn't. Well, he's not cutting it in the midfield. His last chance saloon was at half back. He's 32 years of age. He's played 220 games, and he doesn't want to win a contest. That there says to me, you cannot survive at AFL level if you won't put your head over the ball and live the values of the footy club. Now, you can say, no, we're going to give him another opportunity. He's been a great servant for us. All these sorts of things. But in the end, you water down what you want the group to become. So if you're comfortable living with that, and you know the old standard you walk by is a standard you accept. Well, this is what'll happen. You'll have the rest of them playing the same way, and I feel sorry for guys like Sam Durham because I reckon they do give in. You know, they have over the last couple of years given of themselves in those situations, but they're looking around and going, "Well, why would I do it if he's not and he's not and he's not?"
And he's a leader, Dylan Shield. He's been playing for a long time, as you said. And there was the Luke Parker incident. Remember that a couple of years ago? Yeah. I think it was a Friday night game where he did a bit of that. So there is a bit of a background there. What about the two rucks? So Essendon play two rucks and one of the few clubs to do it.
So if you're going to talk about bouncing out, some of it is because you've designed this yourself. So if you're going to play two rucks, they can't defend like a hybrid forward can. So here's Brian rolling up to try and go with him. Now, physically, athletically, he can't do it. So this is what happens. So if you want to pick him, you've got to live with a bit of this. The others have to pick up the slack, and if they don't, you pay a price. So don't sit back and say, oh, well, this happened, that happened, this happened. You've got to know that if you're going to pick this 23 and you're going to give up some luxuries, but you can say, oh, we're going to mark the ball, we're going to move the ball and get them the other way. That's fine. You will, right? And
that's
you'll score,
the cost.
But you'll score 100 points and it'll look terrific, right? You say, no problem there. But there's a problem the other way. And so you've got to learn what you're going to live with. But 25 goals, we haven't seen in the last 10 years, we only had 9 times. That's 2,000 games of footy. 9 times where teams have scored more than what Adelaide did on the weekend.
It was an avalanche. No doubt about that.
Ridiculous.
What about the role of the superstar captain, Zack Merritt, in this? So Dyson Heppel walks out of the club, retires from Essendon, doesn't play in a winning final. This bloke, 5 best and fairest, 231 games. He turns 30 this year. He had 4 goals, 36 possessions. Well, couldn't have done more. Was enormous. He's always enormous, Zack Merritt. Now, is he going to play in a winning final in the red and black? Dyson Heppel didn't. Would he be worried about suffering the same fate? Do the doubts creep in? Because you hear about Essendon, you know, Scotty signed a 227, the list might not be good enough, we need more time. How much time has Zack Merritt got? How long can he keep putting up with this? St Kilda had a crack at him last year. They saw a little fault line. He stayed. Contract, you know, a bit more money, so he stays. He must be the most loyal bloke in football almost, Zack Merritt. How did he go this morning?
I think the football world was feeling for Zack Merritt with the way that he's put in, the way that he's put in really over the last few years. He has tried to lift the standard of the football club. The standards they keep talking about, that are improving, but sometimes we don't see it on the field, but we see it from Zack Merritt. He just doesn't have enough players to come with him. He doesn't have enough leaders around him.
It's a one-man band.
To come with him. And even some of his other leaders. I mean, you can put Andy McGrath in this bracket and some other players that are meant to be Redmond and guys that are meant to be leaders of the footy club that do not play with the same desperation and want and will and desire to win that he does. And I've got no doubt he'd be sitting at home getting really frustrated with what his team is.
He'd be feeling.